In the gut, epithelium forms a sheet that covers the surface. Look at this image taken at low magnification. It's a section through the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. This pink outer layer is smooth muscle, and just internal to it, in a region we call the submucosa, you can discern some veins as tiny bright reddish orange circles. Like all blood vessels, they will be lined by a specially named simple squamous epithelium that I'll talk about later. The inner surface is thrown into tall folds which look like fuzzy spikes about 1 centimetre high. These are called plici circularis and are covered with tiny, finger-like projections called villi, each about 1 to 2 millimetres long and very hard to see clearly at this magnification. These villi are covered by simple columnar epithelium, which is what we're interested in for this lecture, and so let's look at these villi at a higher magnification. Most of the epithelial cells are of one type, called enterocytes, or absorptive cells. Their purple, oval-shaped or elongated nuclei are generally situated towards the base of the cells. The most distinctive specialization of enterocytes is the brush border of microvilli that covers their free surface. It expands the entire apical cell membrane area for absorption. The microvilli are too small to be seen individually, but they form this visible pink line, about a micrometer or 2 thick along the surface of the epithelium. This darker line just below represents the horizontal network of actin filaments called the terminal web, which supports and provides rigidity to the microvilli. You can't see the basement membrane that supports the epithelium, but you can tell where it runs, at the junction between the base of the epithelial cells and the very differently organised connective tissue below them. This connective tissue supporting the epithelium is called the lamina propria, and I'll say more about this in my lecture on connective tissue. A second type of cell, called the goblet cell, is scattered in the epithelium. These cells manufacture and release mucus. Goblet cells have the shape of a wine glass, hence their name. Their apical ends are expanded by masses of stored mucus. Only a narrow stem of cytoplasm extends to the basement membrane. Look carefully, and you can see that the nuclei of goblet cells look different from those of enterocytes. They're squeezed into a dark triangle or cone by the plug of mucus above them. Goblet cells are an important cell type in many epithelia. Further downstream, in the large intestine, they dominate the columnar epithelium. In other places, columnar mucous epithelium invaginates into the underlying tissue to form mucus glands, which I'll describe later in my lecture on the exocrine glands. A variable number of lymphocytes invade the epithelium of the gut. They appear as these dark, round nuclei at any level in the epithelium. When classifying an epithelium as to its type, any lymphocytes are ignored and thought of as just intruders into the epithelium. They're not epithelial, they're born elsewhere, and eventually they'll move elsewhere in their job of policing and surveying the tissue for pathogenic invaders. The epithelium that lines the gut is considered to be simple columnar regardless of the presence of lymphocytes and of the fact that some goblet cell nuclei may not necessarily line up perfectly with those of the enterocytes.